In this short video, I'm going to show you how to create scatter charts and bubble charts and how to understand them. First of all, let's understand the data that we have in sheet number 1 of this spreadsheet. Our data has 4 columns: country, GDP per capita, average life satisfaction that ranges from 0 to 10. 0 indicates worst and 10 indicates best. And the last column is population, and the unit for that would be number of people. All right. So the first thing that you need to notice is that the charts or the group of charts that Excel offers can be found under Insert tab and under Charts group. What you're going to do is start with a simple scatter chart. If I click actually on the scatter chart over here, you will see that there are different types of scatter charts and bubble charts that I can create. The simplest one, and the first one, if you actually hover your cursor on top of that, you will see that it says use this chart type to compare at least 2 sets of values or pairs of data. Now, what I want to compare in this data set is GDP per capita versus average life satisfaction. I want to find the relationship between GDP per capita of these 17 countries versus average life satisfaction in these countries. So what I'm going to do is to select these 2 columns that I want to compare, go to Insert tab, under Charts, I'm going to click on Scatter Type, and then click on the first one. You will see that Excel automatically generates this kind of chart for you. It is important to note that this formatting is not okay to put in your reports, to put in journal papers and conference papers. You need to make sure that the format is standard and professional, as I talked about in the chart elements video. Now, before make sure that the format of this chart is professional, I'm going to actually talk about bubble charts here as well. So right now you can tell that the x-axis, which does not have a label and we should add it, represents GDP per capita, and y-axis represents average life satisfaction, right? Now, what if I want to add another value to this graph? The third value that I have is population, right? Right now, this graph does not give me any good information about the population of these 17 countries. What if I want to add that information into this graph as well? And that's where bubble charts come into play. So again, let me go to under Insert, Scatter Charts. Let's go to the bubble chart over here and read the description. It says use this chart type to compare at least 3 sets of values or pairs of data. And that's what exactly we have. So a bubble chart is simple. A bubble chart is a scatter chart with the third column of values. In our case, population will be the third column of values. You can either convert this to a bubble chart or create a new one. So what I'm going to do is to select these 3 columns, and then go under the scatter charts and select bubble chart. As you can see right now, this scatter chart, again, on x-axis you have GDP per capita, on y-axis you have average life satisfaction, and the size of each bubble represents the population of that country. So this graph will give you more information than a simple scatter chart, right? Now, the next step is to make sure that the format of these graphs are professional and ready for publication. Now, what I'm going to do, because I already talked about different elements of chart and I showed you how to modify your chart to make it more professional and publication ready, I'm going to pause this video, modify these charts, and show you the final result and the professional charts that I have created. After spending a couple of minutes on these 2 charts, on these 2 plots, you can see that now the format of these 2 plots is professional and it's ready to be copied and pasted into your report, journal paper, conference paper, or whatever document that you're working with. one thing that you should notice is that these two charts, number one, they have all necessary components of a professional chart. Number two, whenever you add another value to your scatter chart that indicates the size of bubbles, you need to add some kind of legend into the chart to make sure that people understand what is the size of the bubbles. In my example, the size of the bubble is population of each country. All right, so this is basic scatter chart and basic bubble chart that you can create in Excel. Now, there are different types of scatter charts that you can create. One very common types of scatter chart I have listed in sheet 2. So if you navigate to sheet 2 of your spreadsheet, you will see that again I have 4 columns. Column number 1 is country, column number 2 is year. Sometimes you will see that whenever you have a number and the width of your column is small, the numbers basically are in forms of these pound signs. So what you need to do is go on the column actually title, and when your cursor changes to something like this, double click on it, you will see that the size of the column increases a little bit and you will see the numbers. Now, what the data that I have in this sheet is for United States starting from year 1960 all the way to 2017, and the last two columns are fixed telephone subscriptions per 100 people, and the last column is mobile cellular subscriptions per 100 people. As you can imagine, there were no cell phones in 1960 all the way to 1983. So the data for these years indicates 0. Now, I want to compare these two. But first, it is important to notice that when your x-axis is going to be year, starting from 1960 in this case, all the way to 2017, it is a better option to choose another type of scatter plot. Let me show you actually. So I'm going to select column B and C, and then go under Insert, and then select my scatter charts. So whenever you have X as your X-axis, whenever you have year as your X-axis, if you select this type of scatter chart, you'll see that your scatter chart is not that expressive. However, if you select another type of scatter chart, these points, these samples are connected to each other. Now, let's read the definition, or let's read the usage that Excel gives us. Excel says that use this chart type to compare at least 2 sets of values or pairs of data. Now, under use it when, it says there are few data points and the data represents a set of XY pairs based on a formula. So this shows kind of a time series. So whenever you're dealing with a time series, use this type or this type of scatter chart that basically creates a line between the points. So I'm going to select this one actually. Now, again, this is not professionally formatted. You need to do it. But before doing that, I want to make sure that I want to add the second type of data to it too. The second type is mobile cellular subscription. So you have 2 ways to do it. I could have actually delete this. I can delete this and then select all 3 rows over here and then go under Insert and select this one. Right now, you can see that Excel automatically creates 2 different lines and 2 different scatter charts for me. The blue one is fixed telephone subscriptions, and the orange one is mobile cellular subscription. And you can see that around year 2000, the number of fixed telephone subscriptions peaked, and after that it started to decline. However, the number of cell phone subscriptions started around 1990 and started going high and high and high, and it was in 2004, 2005 that it started to go over fixed telephone subscriptions. Okay, so this graph gives you a lot of good information, but the problem with that is not professionally formatted. Again, I'm going to pause this video, professionally format this graph, and show you the final result. After spending a couple of minutes on these two lines and this graph, now you can see that this graph is way more professional and it's ready to be copied and pasted in your report. Notice that I use different marker for different lines. So the black line, which represents fixed telephone subscriptions, is marked with black colored line and also circular marker, right? However, the red line, which represents mobile cellular subscriptions, is displayed by red triangles and red line. This will help different readers to identify the lines better. So not only you need to use different colored lines, you need to use different colored markers and different shaped markers to make sure that your data and your lines are crystal clear for everybody that is reading that. Another point that I want to mention is take a look that I added a source to my data. If the data is not yours, if you are borrowing data from another source, you need to clearly mention that where you got the data. In this case, I got the data from World Bank or World Development Indicators, and I added the source for data into the title of my chart. Sometimes the source to the data is added to the chart caption in your reports or journal papers or conference papers. That is an acceptable form of presenting the source of your data as well. All right, so this short video talked about scatter charts and bubble charts and how to create professional charts using Excel.